All right. Hello, everyone. It's always an honor to be in our nation's capital and especially to talk about Bitcoin. Oh, how far we've come. So the title of my talk today is Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, the American Monetary Revolution. I'd like to propose a line of thinking that the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Executive Order and the Bitcoin Act proposed by Senator Lummis is the most significant economic shift and announcement and the only positive economic announcement that's come out of the United States and this nation's capital in the last 100 years. I think it's a narrative and an idea that is not talked about enough both in the media and in our nation's capital. So the premise of my talk is that over the last century, American economic policy has been working against the very principles that this country was founded on, specifically life, liberty, and property. And I truly believe that the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve is a turning point in American history, and it's the first positive and hopeful economic announcement that acts in line with the principles that this country was founded on. So specifically, what do I mean when I think of massive economic announcements that have come from the United States of America? I think of 1933 and the Executive Order 6102 and a violation of what I consider to be property rights in this country. I think of 1971 and the Nixon shock, what I think to be as a divorce from hard money and reality in this country. I think of the bailout in 2008 and what I think to be a violation of all men are created equal. And I view the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve as a pivotal moment when contrasted to the last century of economic policy to come out of our nation's capital as something that's revolutionizing and bringing back American principles and the founding ideals of this nation. So we'll go through quick history. 1933, for those that don't know, Executive Order 6102 was a reaction to economic crisis where the U.S. government demanded that citizens turn in their gold, therefore their property, right? Reminds me of this quote from John Adams. Again, I want us as a country to think about what grounded and founded this nation, this great nation. The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. And if you look at the Fifth Amendment, Executive Order 6102 was in direct violation of the amendment that our founding fathers wrote. The founding fathers enshrined protections of private property into the Constitution. And the confiscation of gold from the public was a direct violation of our amendment rights. If you then go to 1971 and the Nixon shock, for those that don't know, I love this New York Times headline. Nixon does stuff about wages, something about taxes. Oh, by the way, he's severing the link between dollar and gold. And it reminds me of this quote from Thomas Jefferson. Again, those that built this very country we're standing in its capital today. Paper is poverty. It is only the ghost of money, not money itself. And when I think of what the Nixon shock did in 1971, is it violated the U.S. Constitution, specifically Article 1, Section 10. No state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payments of debt. And so economic policy in this country over the last century has been a violation of not only the best interest of the public and the best interest of the people and the best interest of its citizens, but the founding ideals that started this great nation. And we go to 2008, what I dubbed the bailout, where global economic crisis destroyed not only this nation, but those all over the world. Reminds me of this quote. I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies. What did 2008 violate? The Declaration of Independence. It was a direct violation to the idea that all men are created equal. In 2008, the economic policies and the reaction to the crisis violated this idea in all of our faces as individual citizens of this country. All men were not created equal that day. And so it's my opinion that for the last century, America has drifted away from its founding principles and sacrificed private property in 1933, sound money in 1971, and free markets in 2008 for short-term policy gain and control, and it was very reactionary and defensive to crisis. And I give all of this to give relative context into what we're living through right now in the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I think that this was a pivotal moment in American history and will be looked back as a turning point in economic policy for this country. Because I view a Bitcoin strategic reserve as restoring private property rights. The US government is validating and empowering its citizens to own a form of property that we can all self-custody, and they're telling you they will not confiscate and they cannot confiscate. It's restoring sound money principles and enabling and promoting a monetary policy that they themselves cannot control. And it is restoring fair and free markets, and that Bitcoin is a global commodity like money that acts and operates as a truly free market, one of the only ones we have left in the world today. I believe that for the first time in a century, the United States of America has made an economic decision that benefits the public. The public in 1933 was not thrilled with the announcement that you have to give them your property or you're going to jail. The public and the people were not thrilled in 1971 when they realized that it was baked into law that the government can debase and inflate your life. The people were not thrilled in 2008 when they realized all men weren't created equal. The people today are thrilled. The individuals today that have had access to this asset class, access to this monetary policy, access to this property that they can self-custody themselves are thrilled that the United States is making an economic decision that benefits their best interest and secures the future of this country. Think about that. For the first time in a century, you have an economic announcement that comes out of the United States of America that's empowering, that's offensive, that's pro-technology, that's pro-growth. So for the first time in a century, the United States of America is economically aligning with the founding principles of private property, sound money, and free markets. And I'd like to introduce the idea that this is more than an economic decision. Don't get me wrong, it's an economic decision, and Michael Saylor is going to come up and give us all the numbers, and we're going to pay off our debt, and I believe that. But I truly believe that this is a return to American values. And giving this context and referencing it through all of the other economic announcements and new policy over the last century really shows light to this idea. And this administration is focused, this is pro-energy, pro-growth, pro-freedom, pro-industry, pro-inclusion, pro-innovation, pro-technology. The story of humanity is engineering a better world. That's America. That's Bitcoin. I think when it comes to our national security, as nations explore alternatives to the dollar, Bitcoin ensures that we are not only focused on securing strong, hard, sound capital, but also the technology that backs it. When you think about the US financial leadership into the 21st century, we're very pro-AI. We have all the Mag 7, the big tech. I think it's very important that America leads this, and we're not on our heels, and we're offensive again. We're not reactionary, we're not defensive, we're not acting against the best interest of the public, we're doing the opposite, and preserving US monetary independence. And so, to wrap it, a Benjamin Franklin quote, when the people find that they can vote themselves money, that will herald the end of the republic. And I think this is true in what we've seen with Elon Musk and Doge and all the audits he's been doing and all the fraud that he's been uncovering. And I think this is true today, especially given light and context of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So I firmly believe that we have a choice as a country. We can continue the cycle of economic decay, or we can embrace the first real solution in a century. And we're not going to confiscate our citizens' property. We're not going to debase and harm their purchasing power. We're not going to treat men differently in this country. We're going to get back to the founding ideas of this great nation and reinstill a lot of the principles that started us and got us to be here in the first place. And I think that the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, from an economic sense, does that and more. And I think it's the most positive economic policy. And Senator Lummis, I'm so grateful for her Bitcoin Act. And we're going to make America great again through Bitcoin. And I think the context relative to all the other prior announcements over the last century really justifies that idea. So thank you, guys.